Hello, everyone. Today we're here to discuss mental health among active duty service women and service members with female biology. According to a recent report by Rand Corporation, service women are more likely than their male counterparts to report mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Healthy Women has a new program, Ready, Healthy, and Able, aimed at reducing the health challenges facing service women, including gender based health disparities in the military. Here with us today are two of our program consortium members to discuss the growing rates of mental health issues in active duty service women and service members with female biology. So excited to have Dr. Tiffany Lange, Senior Clinical Director of Utilization Review at Community Behavioral Health, and Pam Price, Deputy Director of the Bomb Gilead and Army Nurse Corps veteran. Welcome, ladies. I'm so thrilled to have you here. Let's dive right in with our first question. Dr. Lange, how is the mental health of service women and service members with female biology affected by military service?
Hi, thrilled absolutely to be here. So women represent the fastest growing population of military service and also represent the fastest growing veteran population. Women now make up almost 20% of our all volunteer active duty military. While women's contributions to the military can be dated back to the Revolutionary War, they continue to experience invisibility both within the military environment and healthcare. Within the military, this often looks like an overemphasis on gender when it's not relevant. Women finding themselves having to outperform their male counterparts for the same advancement opportunities, and the assumption that gender impacts one's ability to fulfill duties. Within healthcare, this invisibility contributes to overlooking early signs of mental health concerns, minimizing symptoms when they're reported, and stigma about seeking mental health treatment. Having a strong social support system, or the camaraderie that the military provides, is one of the greatest protective factors against mental health symptoms and suicide. Unfortunately, many women service members experience gender isolation and find it difficult to get integrated in the male-dominated environment. These stressors, especially gender discrimination and sexual harassment, are known to have a negative impact on mental health. These obstacles can also impact women's decision to stay in the military, which reduces the number of women who advance into more senior ranks and therefore reduces the number of women role models for professional development. In regards to mental health, we oftentimes talk about the mind-body connection, with recognition that our physical health impacts our mental health and vice versa. But we don't talk enough about the individual and the interaction with the environment. So women who may be in an invalidating environment, experiencing gender discrimination, sexual harassment, can absolutely experience the ripple effect that those stressors can have on the individual and their overall mental health and well-being.
Wow. So much great information. Absolutely agree with all of it. Why do you think, Dr. Lange, that service women and service members with female biology are reporting worse symptoms of depression, anxiety, and PTSD than their cis male counterparts?
Yes, definitely. A little bit of it was just kind of touched on, but to really specify, women do experience unique stressors within the military. Some of these stressors range from dealing with equipment not designed for female bodies, gender discrimination, heightened risk of interpersonal violence, military sexual trauma, reproductive concerns, as well as bias against mothers. The impact of these gender-specific stressors is obvious when we consider that mental health concerns are higher among women service members for nearly all diagnoses: adjustment disorders, eating disorders, trauma reactions, depression, postpartum symptoms, as well as a heightened risk for suicide. Unfortunately, women's mental health has not received enough attention to keep up with the need. This has led to several gender-specific gaps in care and the increasing rates of mental health symptoms among women service members. Women continue to also be underrepresented in research and program development, which has impacted the availability of quality training for military healthcare providers. And if providers are unaware of the unique stressors and mental health care needs for women service members, then mental health concerns will continue to be overlooked or minimized. So it makes it even more important for women service members to attend talks just like this one so they can learn about what resources are available to them and find ways to prioritize their own mental health.
Absolutely. I mean, attending, events like these and also just knowing the resources around can empower you so much, to know that you're not alone and there are other resources that can be there to support you. So thank you for adding that. Pam, you shared your experience with the military health system with us. Can you tell us a little more about your journey with mental health?
Absolutely. And thank you again so much for allowing me to be here. I think Dr. Lane really set it up to kind of specify in terms of how the current system or the current environment, as she described, is really just not conducive to being able to address, I think, the mental health challenges that are unique to us as females serving. So I am a woman, a veteran. I am working to live and thrive with bipolar disorder. And it actually wasn't until I left the military that I was able to actually get an appropriate diagnosis. And a lot of that, in addition to what Dr. Lang pointed out in terms of the system not being adequately fit to support us, it also deters us from being able to even just acknowledge ourselves that we may be having mental health issues or challenges or struggles, because we do want to fit in. We want to be able to be seen as equal and equitable, battle buddies and comrades with our cis male counterparts. And that is really challenging, because then we end up, not really paying attention to signs and symptoms that we may be experiencing. It also definitely impacts us and our willingness to seek care. Even within the current system that does exist, oftentimes because we may have to go to our leadership, which is often very male dominated. And so there's a lot of barriers in terms of just how we are able not only to feel that we are supported in us being able to acknowledge I may be having some struggles mentally with anxiety, with depression, and just how that even physiologically may be impacting us. If we are retreating, which means we're not engaging. And if you are in a leadership role, now you're seen as a less effective leader, as opposed to if I had a safe space to go, if I had individuals that I felt I could go and talk to and get the right treatment, and have a wide variety of treatment options available. I think that's also a challenge within our current military health system, is that it is sometimes a one size fits all. You don't have perhaps the access to look at your mental health and approach it from a holistic standpoint. If you can only seek care again from your military treatment facility, where it may be an outside clinician who could maybe be better suited for you. And so I think those are definitely some of the key challenge that I faced while on active duty, and have been just a really strong advocate, much like, Dr. Lane, of really trying to sound the alarm of not so much of what we've gotten wrong, but really that there's an opportunity, because this is women. We are a growing force within our armed forces across the board. Women not only serving on active duty, but just thinking about all the other roles that we play as mothers, as single mothers, or as wives. We're wearing a lot of different hats, and our military hats are equally important to us. And we want to be able to maintain and stay in these spaces, and to be able to serve our countries and to serve our communities for as long as we want, as long as we can. And that's really what I hope, we can kind of take away from this conversation, that while there's a lot of work to do, it's really important that we put in that work, that we prioritize this work, because women really, we have a lot to contribute to these spaces, much as many others. And being in the military allows us to stretch and grow and be in places and spaces, again, just even as an African American woman, that I may not have been afforded had it not been for the military. And I want us to be able to continue to see that. I want this to be a space that, as mothers who have daughters, that we feel safe, that we can encourage our daughters to sign up, enlist, and to volunteer, and to take on what this sacrifice means, because it's worth it.
I love that, Pam. And I know you touched upon about, barriers of getting care, that service women face, which was going to be my next question. I'm curious to hear from, I'm sure there are some of our male counterparts watching this episode who may be in leadership or are in leadership, but also maybe women who are watching this and saying, am I ignoring some of these symptoms? So could you walk us through kind of your journey of maybe ignoring some of those symptoms and maybe what that looked like in terms of what thoughts you were having? And then when you said you retired and getting a proper diagnosis, also kind of what that looked like, because I'm sure a lot of people may be thinking, I may have something similar to Pam's story.
Yeah, sure thing. So there's two analogies that I kind of like to give. And one, I'll start with that. Oftentimes when, again, we feel that we're not in safe spaces. And I think that's whether you're, you have a diagnosable condition, or again, there's so many stressors that can become chronic. So if you are even being just overwhelmed with some of the stressors that we experience on active duty, I think the current environment that we are in now, it causes women to mask. And by mask is in my case, it would be to put on the smile, to put on, the brave face, when in fact on the inside, I am, really, struggling. And so that becomes extremely first just toxic again to just what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish and us being able to achieve our goals within the military. But if we just think psychologically what that means to be able to have to suppress really strong and powerful, in my case, very strong and powerful emotions that I had no outlet for. And so it just becomes a kind of just a recycling of these masks, so to speak, so that we can continue to feel like I am fitting in, that I am contributing. I don't want them to see this as a knock against me, because that's oftentimes what those struggles are seen as. Another analogy, and I'm sure again is military, people, we all get issued duffel bags. We get issued them almost at every duty station that we go into. I still have actually several duffel bags at home. And I as a woman, sometimes when the system again is not conducive to us being able to get the access to the treatments and care and things that we need, our duffel bags or our rucksacks, if you will, they become really full. And they become full of all of the emotional and mental challenges that we have no place to be able to openly discuss and to share. And so for all my male counterparts, again, if you can think about, you don't want any extra weight in your rucksacks. You don't want anything extra in that duffel bag as you're going on that, 20-mile, road march or whatever it may be. So I would ask them to, again, to think about that, to see if you have, female soldiers who you are, serving, because really as leaders, we are serving, right? We are honored and privileged to be able to serve those that are placed under us, right? So I would just ask them to, again, to think about how you have created a safe space. Have you spoken negatively about what we hear just in society about mental health? Have you used words like crazy? Have you painted mental illness as a weakness? Have you painted it as something that if you are experiencing it, you are somehow now insufficient in your ability to function and to serve? And if you use language like that, to think about now how you're going to change it. Because in essence, what you're asking or what you're contributing to is the extra caring for female soldiers of invisible mental health baggage that we really, really, really want to be able to address, appropriately and effectively, so that we're not carrying around, all of, again, this kind of extra baggage, so to speak. So I really like to use those two analogies to kind of paint the picture of what it was like for me, and then what, hopefully others, if they can envision. And then to also just think about our daughters, think about your mothers, think about your aunties, think about your cousins, think about the other females in your life who aren't soldiers. You would maybe want different for them. And I would just ask to say that we, see us, equally as human beings, see us as contributors, see us as valuable assets to what our missions are. And then think about how we can change that paradigm and change that narrative about how we talk amongst ourselves about mental health.
I love that. It's sometimes that subtle language that we think will not impact, someone, and creating that safe space, like you said, but really it can make such a huge difference. So thank you, Pam, for sharing that. Dr. Lange, is there anything you wanted to add to this before, of course, we move on to the next question?
So I think Pam covered it really well in kind of dialoguing about what some of those barriers are. And so waiting for kind of your next question is I can also kind of speak a little bit further about what that stigma might be in regards to the impact for mental health.
Yeah, please do. My next question, as you know, is closely tied to what Pam was just saying, which is, how does stigma impact mental health in the military?
Yeah. So yes, Pam laid a wonderful foundation and provided context in regards to how stigma within kind of the environment, and especially the language that we use, can have a ripple effect on whether or not someone seeks mental health services. And when we think about mental health stigma, it is heightened within the military. It is a very common view to view kind of mental health symptoms as a sign of weakness. And then treatment is often avoided due to concerns about the impact on one's military position, such as security clearance. Well, this stigma is also intensified for women service members who find themselves having to challenge those assumptions about their gender and prove their worth. As a result, many of them are hesitant to report any stressors or symptoms for worry that it might just reinforce the stereotypes about women in the military. And as Pam was mentioning, language is important. The words that we use, how we communicate with one another, impacts how we think about certain things. And that absolutely plays a role in mental health. There's also some misunderstanding and stigma about seeking mental health services in the military because there's concerns about confidentiality and privacy. And so I want to share a little bit about the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, what a lot of us refer to as HIPAA, because it specifies the healthcare privacy requirements and the rules for disclosure of medical information. Within the civilian sector, these privacy practices are fairly consistent with limitations to confidentiality, really centered on kind of urgent safety concerns. So risk of harm to self, risk of harm to others, or the potential abuse, neglect of children, elderly, or other vulnerable individuals. Within the military, there's some slight differences. So medical information may be disclosed to military commands in a variety of circumstances. So specifically, if there's concern to safeties, the ones that I just mentioned, a determination of fitness for duty, especially if someone is referred for this type of evaluation, or if there's information that leads a provider or command to have concerns about ability to fulfill mission requirements. Ethically, as a mental health provider, we have to review these privacy regulations as well as the limitations at the start of services. And a quality mental health provider will answer any of the questions or concerns that someone may have about those limitations. But sometimes the lack of awareness about what is HIPAA, what are those limitations, can further that stigma about mental health treatment and can further kind of the perception that nothing is kept private in mental health treatment. So I think it's important to really highlight that one study did show that 97% of military personnel who proactively sought mental health treatment, so that recognition of some of the early signs or some of the stressors that are going on, and asked for mental health care, did not experience any negative career impact. Yet the myth and the stigma surrounding care persists and prevents many service members from seeking or receiving mental health treatment. So as Pam was emphasizing and speaking, how command talks about mental health and well-being can absolutely influence the culture of care and the encouragement to be proactive in getting those necessary services.
So what you're saying, I just want to make sure, we clarify for everybody watching, is that seeking mental health services for our service women would not affect their, well, could not affect kind of their whatever their rank is, or maybe their position?
Well, it's hard to say for every individual because we just don't know what people are kind of presenting for treatment for. But what I can say is the vast majority who seek the mental health treatment rather than being referred by their command are shown to be less likely to have negative career impacts. But as Pam mentioned, it really does kind of take the environment and fostering kind of that culture of support to engage in mental health treatment. So women still need to be able to ask for the service and then get access to it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Pam, what resources do service women have available to them to get help, or maybe some of the ones that you may have also used in the past?
So I think again, and really just love what Dr. Lange said. And one thing, if we think about even how women are exiting, via a chapters, that is a negative approach when individuals feel that my mental health is that out, or can be used as an out. And so it really, the culture that we're creating, I think again, is just so important. In terms of resources, and again, I think it's going to vary by the duty station, in which you're in. A lot of stations who are more combat ready, so to speak, so which is very different from maybe our military institutions who are trade-off, or those that are traditionally our training institutions. I was able to serve at both, and I can tell you that the access and level of resources available in our more kind of training spaces actually are a little bit better conducive to when we get into those who are meant to kind of get us fit and ready for deployments, and again, to be more combat ready, to where you may be limited in your access to psychologists and certain types of therapy. So I think that is where we've got to kind of shore up some of those resources that we do have available. So the use of social workers, the use of licensed professional counselors is also, is available to us. Again, it's just whether or not we can create that culture that we feel like I can, request those types of services and resources that are available to me. What I am loving to start to see a shift in is this creation of online resources. So resources that, as an active duty servicewoman or servicewoman, or as a veteran, that I can access kind of on my own and counter, to perhaps what is available on post, or through, the medical treatment facilities that are on military bases. So looking at things like BetterHelp, which again is an online that also provides support groups. So that's a really amazing resource. You can kind of use it on your time. There's Black Girl Therapy, also again just for Black women who are looking either for a therapy, or they're looking for what are some resources and tools that I can kind of put in my toolbox to help me if I am feeling overwhelmed by some of the stressors. So I really like this shift of being able to wrap an online community around what's available at our military treatment facilities, because I think that is a way to serve kind of as a stopgap until we can start to get, I think, better and improved access. I do also like the fact that we saw that TRICARE shifted to allow non-referral. So I don't have to go see my PCM to get a referral for mental or behavioral health services. I think that was so important when they moved that to what I saw as a barrier to now you can go and you can look what is available, who is available in my network. I can kind of shop around to see who's going to be the best fit for me and what I may be experiencing. So I think those are definitely some resources, but you have to, I challenge women to educate themselves about what is available, what are the protocols and procedures for you to be able to access those services, and then again really become your best champion for yourself if you know you are experiencing some challenges.
Absolutely. What about you, Dr. Lange? What resources are out there to help service women?
Yeah, so to build upon what Pam already shared, I do always encourage individuals to seek out kind of information, feel informed, set your expectations about the process of seeking mental health. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. Military One Source is a great hub for kind of reviewing some of those materials. The Real Warriors campaign is another one that the military has been kind of advocating and kind of increasing its reach in regards to supplying information about mental health resources. In regards to TRICARE, that's absolutely an option as well. Individuals can also go to a website called Psychology Today and actually look through the profiles of mental health providers. You can filter it by your insurance. So you can do TRICARE, in and out of network, and you can also filter by whether or not someone has a specialty in military and veteran populations. So given kind of what you're seeking and what you're looking for, that's an excellent option for trying to find goodness of fit. Because with mental health treatment, it's kind of like finding the perfect pair of shoes. You have to find a good fit to create kind of that safe environment to get the most out of it. And then also there's always Fleet and Family Services that can provide resources as well.
Thank you. And for all of our viewers, please know we will be linking to these resources in the recording of this episode. So if you miss anything that Dr. Lange or Pam said, don't worry, we will have them linked up. And thank you, Dr. Lange, for also mentioning that it is like finding, the right size of shoes or what you like. I think so many women and people don't think that, you are allowed to kind of like interview or feel out a therapist or a mental health provider and say like, I didn't really bond with this person or we didn't really click, and it's okay to like continue seeking, for someone that is a better fit. So thank you. I think now we're going to go ahead and turn to a couple questions from our audience, if we're okay with that. I definitely want to, give that opportunity. So let's see what the first one is. So I've been going to the behavioral health clinic regularly, but I don't think my therapist is the right fit for me. What should I do? Which kind of fits to what we were just saying. What do you think, Dr. Lange?
So this is a wonderful question. And I encourage everyone to have that conversation. So I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. There are certain things that I specialize in, and then there are certain things that are outside of the scope of my specialty. Very similar to kind of how physical health providers are set up as well. The vast majority of mental health providers have had these conversations before with kind of potential clients. So having that dialogue about what you're looking for, what that potential match or mismatch might be, can actually help that current provider get you connected to someone who might be a better fit. And, in referencing kind of Psychology Today, if you're out there seeking a mental health therapist, you can also ask for a free 15-minute consultation. A number of mental health providers do that because even from the therapist perspective, that recognition of like why goodness of fit is so important for mental health treatment, that's also valued on the clinician side too. So some of those early conversations are encouraged and absolutely worthwhile, so you can get the best treatment and the most out of mental health care.
Would you recommend maybe making a list for someone seeking therapy of like, the things that they would like to ask their therapist in that 15-minute session? Or, let's say someone's religious, like affiliated, to a religious, organization, and that's important to them for a therapist to understand that. Do you think that would be helpful to kind of have like a little list of these are the things that are important to me and I want to ask this potential therapist?
Absolutely. And as well as what do you want out of treatment?
Yeah.
So therapy is not supposed to be a lifelong journey, right? Like we're not supposed to grow old together. Mental health treatment is in service of empowering the individual so that they can tackle whatever stressors, challenges, and get the most out of life. Because that's what happens. Like life happens outside of the therapy session. But those conversations happen so quickly. So if you can prepare a list of questions, solidify and kind of like write down like what you are looking for out of mental health treatment, you're more likely to feel empowered to have that conversation instead of after the appointment and saying, oh, I wish I would have asked that.
Yeah, absolutely. Pam, did you have anything to add to this question before we move on?
No, I just wanted to say yes, because that's what I was thinking, is to come into your appointments, having a list, having those what is it that you're looking for and what you hope to get out of. The other thing, only other thing that I would add to that is, because as Dr. Lang just mentioned, life happens outside of our therapy sessions. So it's about thinking about who else needs to be a part of your tribe in addition to your therapist or your counselor to help with again the other stressors that just may come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. Next question. I'm about to deploy. Are there any ways I can get mental health treatment overseas? Dr. Ling?
Yeah. So even prior to deployment, it can be part of your readiness plan to think through what are some of the stressors. I've actually worked with an individual before who was active duty, where that's essentially what we did is we put together a toolkit and a booklet for readiness on deployment. What are some of the stressors I might encounter? What are some of the challenges? What are the things that I need to have readily accessible to me? So you can start a lot of that prep work even before deployment. So your question indicates you're at that time, getting ready to deploy. So readiness can really help. And then while you're out there, there's also resources as well. Now, it may look different depending upon the location in which you're deployed. And so it may be, looking to your corpsman or looking to your command to get you connected. But also chaplains tend to be readily accessible and visible throughout kind of deployments. And they're often a great asset for getting connected to mental health treatment and care while you're overseas.
Back to Pam's question, Dr. Ling, or I'm sorry, comment in terms of online services being, creating more accessibility. Do you think that when, service women get deployed, these online services have also made it a bit easier in terms of, for them to be able to seek therapy, even if it's not one-on-one and in person, but maybe that online platform?
Virtual telehealth has changed the game. It's changed the ability to kind of access care, especially when we're in kind of different locations and when we might be kind of moving. It helps with consistency of care. So if there is an online platform that you've found helpful, getting support, even reading more about kind of some of the resources that might be out there, absolutely encourage keeping that going, while also recognizing that there's some limitations to that. So if you feel like it's not fully addressing your needs, that's also a sign to reach out for additional help, right? So maybe sometimes the first path that we pursue for mental health treatment is the best fit. It just might be the first path that we started, and being okay with pivoting until you get exactly what you're looking for is the part of kind of our mental wellness journeys.
Yeah, I think that first step is getting your toes a little wet, even if you end up switching therapists. All right, last question. I'm a new recruit. Before I joined the military, I was in therapy and taking antidepressants. How can I make sure my treatment continues? Dr. Lang, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so I know paperwork, documentation, but it's always beneficial to have your records readily accessible. Large systems struggle with communicating. They do. Even if there's release of information, it's just large systems. But you are allowed to share your health records, with your next kind of treating provider, which can really be beneficial when they're asking about history of care as well. So if you found something that worked, especially in regards to psychotropic medications, that can be extremely beneficial in communicating that within service to make sure that you're continuing on with that as well.
Great. Pam, is there anything that you wanted to add to some of these audience questions?
No, I just think these are great. Again, just want to ditto that this is a journey. I think, again, for those of us who are living or, and coming into this space, it is a journey. And to continue, again, to try and find ways to be comfortable and give yourself some flexibility. I think, yes, to pivot and find what is going to work best for you.
Yeah, definitely that patience and commitment, but it's always going to have a positive outcome, I believe. Well, thank you so much, of course, to both of you for your incredible expertise and stories and all the information you had to share. Thank you to our audience, of course, for joining us today for another conversation on WomenTalk. Join us for our next episode on WomenTalk, which is on sex, pleasure, and pain on November 30th at noon Eastern Time. And of course, thank you to our partners. This WomenTalk episode was created with support from the Ready, Healthy, and Able program funders. And if you want to learn more about this amazing service women program that we have at Healthy Women, Ready, Healthy, and Able, please visit the military.healthywomen.org website. Thank you again. Thank you for your time and just carving out time for us out of your busy schedules. Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Women Talk. Stay tuned for more Healthy Women live events at www. You can also follow us at Healthy Women on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or LinkedIn, or follow us on Instagram at HealthyWomen.org. We'll see you next time.